See, I'm getting the YouTube going again.
All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about it this time. Cleo will
Here, I
let
can
people.
do make co-host right now. Let me see, actually, see if
Oh,
that
okay.
changes. I should
Oh,
be automatic.
yes. Now
Yep,
that did it. Okay. Yeah.
excellent.
Do
Well,
you need to
I'm
make
not gonna
Adam
worry.
a co-host in order for him to do the slides? Or
Oh no, no, we have no trouble with that.
okay, super.
I think it's just to see the people entering.
Okay, great.
But yes, now we're at time and our YouTube is up. So I'm gonna press record over here. And here we go, record to the cloud. Okay. And now I'm gonna start letting people in. So see you
You.
guys. Good luck, everybody. Here we go. Okay. All right. Perfect.
Hello, hello. So wonderful to see everybody.
I said it must be very warm, Cleo and Catherine, where you are.
Oh yes.
Mm.
Well,
I
There's my friend Nancy.
Hi,
Oh,
how are you?
I made it this week.
Welcome, Carol.
I was here a week ago. I was on time, 2 minutes early, but also a week early.
well, we're
Catherine
happy
and
you made
Cleo,
it.
this is Carol
So
from
nice to
Hi.
lives on Cape Ann.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And this is
amazing.
Colin Evans. Colin is our newest facilitator. He's going to be showing up in the facilitator group in filmmaking. He's working on an amazing film.
Yeah.
He and I just did a wonderful podcast.
Hi,
So,
everyone.
so happy to have you here.
Yeah, I'm just very excited to be here.
Yeah.
That's
Nice to
awesome.
meet
Great to
everyone.
see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Yeah.
And
Hello, everyone.
Sharon Burton, so nice to see you again.
Mm.
Oh, hello. Wow, this is
Now,
a
now you're unmuted, Sharon. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. It's good to be here. Yeah.
So glad to see you. Hi, Donna. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Just to kick things off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Cleo. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I will be moderating and helping with our flow today during this TLC discussion.
And I'm Catherine Hayward, greeting you from Mallorca, Spain. And I didn't have a chance to say hi to John. Hi, John.
Hello, hello.
And I didn't have a chance to say hi to Beth. Beth is coming to us from Western Massachusetts.
Hello.
So nice to see
Hello.
you.
Perfect. Let's see. I think we have everyone for the moment. If people continue popping in, I will let them in whenever they appear. But yeah, we just wanted to welcome you all and let you know that today is our third session exploring the theme of starting fresh in our TLCs. So our special guest today will be Dr. Adam Reinfleisch, who is here, and he will be guiding us as we explore this theme.
So,
And yes, there we go. I'm going to put the spotlight on Catherine so she can welcome everyone as well. Hello.
also, Marianne doesn't have her video on, but welcome, Marianne. It's nice to have you here as well. Um, Adam and David and I met, I don't know, 20 something years ago. Right, Adam? Adam and I were working in an organization called the Academic Consortium of, what is it called? It's got a new name now.
Yeah, Academic Consortium for Integrative Medicine and Health.
And health, yes. And Adam was the representative for University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was the representative for Harvard. And I remember the moment that I met Adam, which was we were in one of those big conference rooms with lots and lots of tables. And I looked across, it was like one of those stories, I looked across the room. And I looked across the room and I saw this guy and I said, I have to know that guy. There was just something magnetic about Adam. And I went over and we got talking about our mutual interest in integrative whole health. And that just launched us into a more than 20-year friendship, colleagueship. We've run a bunch of retreats together, many of them for medical students back in the day. And then our very first Living Whole in-person retreat that we did in the Redwood Forest, with Sharon, you were there. We did that together. So Adam is a professor at Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health. His focus is in integrative family medicine, and he also is skilled in shamanism, and he'll be sharing some of that with us today, as well as integrative whole health, biofield therapies, mind-body approaches, spirituality, and health. And one of the many exciting things he's done in recent years is he ran a program at the VA that he'll be telling us about a bit later, where he was helping people with PTSD heal through integrative whole health approaches and training people within the VA to keep that work going. Very, very important work. He also worked on helping start a medical school in Arkansas. A little bit less than a year ago, he got married to somebody who lives in Hawaii. And so they have this exciting thing that they have to do between Wisconsin and Hawaii. And he has 2 sons who are in college. So Adam, it's just so delightful to have you here. We're so happy and grateful. So before we have Adam launch in and guide us through this experience, Cleo's just going to take us through the upcoming month's preview.
Yes, so just to give everyone a sense of what's going on here at Living Whole Online, I just wanted to let you know what's coming up, because then we're going to change our flow a little bit and let Adam sort of guide the session from here on out, which is cool and a different sort of rhythm. So anyway, just to get us going, I wanted to let you know what's coming up. And today, if you've seen in our newsletter, we feature Adam's conversation with Catherine and Dr. Bill Manahan called Take Charge of Your Health. We also have a terrific no-oil vegan mayonnaise recipe to get you thinking about spring potato salads, which are one of my favorites always. And Dr. T. Colin Campbell and his filmmaker son Nelson are featured in a podcast called 3 Ways to Eat for Your Health and Earth's Health. Catherine did a graduation address at a university in 2017 about how to overcome fear of failure, given what is happening in the world right now, and given that graduation season is soon upon us. We decided to add it to the website in April. Oh, someone else is joining us. Let me let them in. Hello and welcome. I'm just giving everyone a little preview of what's coming up. So feel free to jump in. I think she's still, there we go. Hello. And yes, as far as other things coming down the pike, we have Neil Barnard's powerful song, International Anthem, which is very timely and feels especially poignant at this moment in history. And then during our next Sunday TLC, that will be April 26th, Sheila Magalhaes will be featured for the entire program, opening, special guest, and closing, sort of like we're doing today. And if that sounds intriguing, we encourage you to please come check it out. Sheila created Heart Song Yoga 33 years ago in Massachusetts, and she and her colleagues offer in-person and virtual classes, and also retreats in amazing places like Costa Rica and the Azores. And she will be guiding us in that session on a new seasonal theme of togetherness. So again, that is April 26th at the same time in your local time zone. And there are many more exciting, surprising things coming up here at Living Whole Online. So feel free to, stay tuned, stay in our newsletter and see what's coming. But for today, I just want to mention everyone should have paper and pencil if they can, a pen, anything to write with for Adam's portion of the program later on. So try to grab your materials, have something ready. And in general, this is meant to be a very open conversation. So feel free to jump in, drop something in the chat, raise a hand, and we want to hear your insights and wisdom throughout. These monthly TLC gatherings on Sundays are intended to be a space where we can build out our Living Whole online community. So for now, I will pass the torch to Adam and I will say thank you so much for being here and
Yeah.
to all of you as well. And we're very excited to share the next hour with you. So let me get you up here as a spotlight. I will disappear for the moment and I'm listening if anyone has any tech issues or questions.
Okay. Great. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Excellent. Well, thank you, Cleo and Catherine. Thank you for the introduction. Such a pleasure. It's amazing that we've known each other for only 20 years when we're, only 30 ourselves, right? So thank you guys for taking time out of your Sunday and really appreciate the chance to be here to talk with you. I'm going to go ahead and show you my slides just so you have a sense of what is up here a little bit more. So the title of the presentation today is Your Fresh Start, 3 Paths to Insight. And what I'm really hoping to do is just encourage you to kind of reflect on the theme of these past 3 months, which is the fresh start theme, but also to take it a little deeper in different ways and decide how that applies to you. And it may be that it doesn't completely apply that way, and that's okay too. But just being able to explore this from 3 different angles. I just wanted to wish everybody a happy spring or fall, depending on what part of the world you're in, and also a special belated 1 day birthday wish to David Thomas. Happy birthday, David. And let's get going. So before we start, I think it's always good to have kind of an opportunity to arrive. This is an exercise I use with my residents and fellows. It's one that we use all the time when we were teaching with the VA as well. Just a chance to bring people together and let them come into the room, because we come in with a lot and sometimes we just need to take a moment to let things just, be at the door. We can always pick them up later, right? So a little bit of an arrival meditation. With all of these activities, you're invited to join. There's no pressure. If you feel at some point like you don't want to do it anymore, just open your eyes and do something else until we're done. It's totally fine. This is really flexible. But I'd like to just take you through, if you're willing to just kind of explore some ways to arrive. So let's do that. If you want to just kind of assume a comfortable position in your chairs, that's probably the easiest way to do it. Sometimes people find it easier to have your legs uncrossed, up to you. They'll always talk about a dignified posture, whatever's most comfortable for you, of course. Eyes open, eyes closed, no problem. I'll probably just leave the slides on, but I can kind of peek at everybody to just make sure everybody's doing okay too. So, all right. So there are really kind of 3 ways that you can arrive. And we're just going to go through each of those in kind of quick succession. If you really find that one of them is resonating, just stay with it. It's totally fine. And I would encourage you after this presentation just to play with some of them. So the first one's breath. So just take a moment. And I just want you to focus on your breath. Don't feel like you have to control your breath. Don't feel like you have to do anything with it. Just be aware of it for a minute. There's nothing that will anchor us in the present moment like tuning into breath. And just taking a few breaths, just noticing, watching them go in and out, maybe through your mouth, maybe through your nose. Feeling the breath move into your body, down through your airways, down into your lungs. And you may even feel a sense that your breath is even going farther than that into your body. Just watching that. And of course, our minds are of the nature to want to kind of move out and think about things or explore other things. Try to just keep your mind on your breath. If it wanders off, just gently bring it back. Emphasis on the word gently. Excellent. Now you can stay with breath, or we can go to number 2, which is simply being aware of your body in other ways. The kind of more elaborate version of that is a body scan meditation, but we're just going to do a few things to help you tune in for right now. So what I'd like you to do is just tune into your feet. That's always a good way to do it and a good way to ground as well. Just tune into your feet. And let's just notice what's going on with our feet right now. Let's start, if it feels appropriate, with your right big toe. Just noticing, what does your right big toe have going on? You can also pick any other part that you'd like. Noticing sensations, noticing pressure, noticing whatever comes up. Again, not judging, not having to do anything with it, just being aware. And then resting our consciousness on our left big toe instead. So just that power of being able to move our awareness to wherever we'd like to move it, and becoming as skillful as you can with that is really helpful. So just tuning into your left big toe now. How is it feeling? You might notice differences between the left and the right. Temperature, touch, feeling of the air if you're barefooted, feeling of socks. Again, pick any body part you'd like, and just tune in. And now, just for a little bit more of a practice with moving consciousness around, just bring your awareness now to your whole left foot, or any other body part you'd like to focus on. And just kind of move from focusing on the toe to focusing on the whole foot. And just how does that feel, that transition to kind of a slightly larger view? How does it feel in your other toes? How does it feel in the sole of your foot? How does it feel in the balls of your foot, your heel? And don't forget the upper part, the ankle, the top part of your foot. And now for one last little piece of a body scan, see if you can focus on both feet at once now. Bring your awareness to both feet. Great. And if your mind wanders, gently bring it back. So you can stay with your breath or stay with working with body awareness. The last one I'm going to take you through is kind of, a colleague of mine once named this ties. You'll see a lot of different ways to remember it, but it's just the things that come up when we're trying to be mindful that can sometimes get in the way. And so I just want to have you have a moment to think about those, and we'll watch for them for just a little bit here. So thoughts, right? Images, emotions, and sensations, that itchy nose, that feeling that your feet are cold, whatever. So just kind of take a moment and sit again and just try to identify those. Sometimes just watching them, almost like you're kind of trying to, make notes like an anthropologist or something, can be really powerful because it also brings you into the present moment. Rather than following the thought, you just think to yourself, oh, here's a thought. Oh, wow, there's an emotion. Feeling a little bit, frustrated about something that came up or happy about something. Just notice it. Don't have to do anything with it except notice. Sensations. Wow, this chair's not as comfortable as I'd hoped. I'm getting imagery of something I did earlier today. Just noticing it and then returning to the present moment over and over and over. Excellent. Okay. And then very gently transitioning back so that your awareness is back on your screen or back on the room. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking a moment. It can be really powerful just to do that for a little while to help you sort of ground yourself. And I encourage my patients, pick one. Any of those work. Some people like to do a few, but having kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, call it a toolbox of mind body skills that you can bring in when you need to is not a problematic thing and can work in your favor oftentimes. Of course, the end goal is that you're kind of in a state of being mindfully aware all the time, right? And that's what we're going to talk about for our first of multiple reflections. I think this crowd, I think most of you have some experiences with mindfulness from what I understand, but mindfulness, to define it really quickly, is paying attention, right? On purpose, it's paying attention and having a sense of what you're doing that for in the present moment without judging and without striving. And sometimes that's tricky, and that's okay. The key is to try to notice if you're striving or notice if you're judging, You can kind of get into this judging loop. Oh no, I'm judging, and start judging yourself for judging and so on and so forth. But trying to avoid that and just kind of bring your awareness back, label it, move back into the present moment. And this is important because as we're starting to contemplate making fresh starts, part of this is this idea of if we're thinking about the present moment all the time, one perspective on this that we'll explore is, are we always making fresh starts? Is every moment a fresh start? There are different perspectives on that we'll get to. Just as a little aside, because I'm a medical nerd and I can't resist talking about the research a little bit, is mindfulness in medicine. There's some pretty compelling things out there. When we think about this, I won't read every single one of them off, but you'll notice there are lists. Those are some of the top things where the research has shown some real promise in terms of what mindful awareness can do for folks. And I've just seen some amazing results in my practice and just in colleagues' practices and in the research, helping people kind of activate their vagal nerve response so that as they're breathing a certain way, they can break a panic attack, which can be incredibly powerful, even right during a doctor visit or whatever. Or being able to help people work with different approaches to sleep or heart rate variability or whatnot. And I just love seeing some of these studies that indicate that our immune systems probably work better as well. So, being able to kind of have a practice in the hopes that it will decrease those seasonal respiratory infections and so on. But in terms of just summing it up in a nutshell, our brains change. There are different studies that talk about neuroplasticity and mindfulness. Some say, especially within 8 weeks of practicing regularly, our brains start to shift, and parts of our brains that are, more likely to be responsive to positive emotions or to be a little more focused start to become more active. So just kind of playing with that a little bit. And the recognition too, I tell this to folks in my practice a lot. Part of the power and part of what leads to the skills that come with mindfulness is that very thing that's hardest about it, which is noticing that your mind's wandering and gently bringing it back over and over and over. So keep at it and remember that that's actually the work of the practice, right? And I think there's a reason why it's called practice. It requires repetition and it requires training. There's a whole spectrum of approaches. Won't get into this too much, but I have a lot of folks tell me, well, I can't sit down. I can't sit still long enough. My mind's too active to do it. That's exactly the reason why it's useful to practice it. But there are a lot of different ways to do it beyond seated meditations too, right? Walking meditations, body scans, like we did a little bit of a hint of just now. Mindful eating, loving kindness, where it's more of a heart-centered meditation and you're radiating it out to the world, to people you care about. I love those because almost always you'll see that they start with sending that kindness to yourself first and then circling all the way back, sending it wherever, but then also sending it to yourself at the end as well. Mantras, right? And chanting, using our voices, using phrases, breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. There are different variations on that. That's where you'll go through different parts of your body and tighten them and release them. So it's kind of a mix of a body scan, but also kind of practicing, kind of changing the tension that you have. And again, we can talk about all these approaches, but the end goal is to carry the mindfulness with you all the time, right? That awareness, that sense of yourself and of what's going on. Okay, so when we're talking about mindfulness and fresh starts, I just want you to pause and reflect a little bit. I'm not going in here with an agenda. Don't mean to say this is how you should be viewing this at all. But there are a couple of concepts I just want to throw out there for you. One is the concept of the word mu. I don't know if anybody has run into this, and it's a very Buddhist framework, and sometimes you'll see it a lot in Zen. But basically, mu is an answer you give when you don't want to just say yes or no, when you kind of reject that a question has to be dualistic in its nature. It kind of unasks the question. So, the classic example they give is if you go up to someone and say, hey, are you still beating your spouse? Which is a horrible question in the first place, but the answer would be mu, because if you say yes, that's not a great answer to share. But if you say no, you kind of imply that you did before, but you're not doing it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So the dualistic response to things doesn't work so well. And so mu. And so when I ask the question about, are you wanting to make a fresh start, or is a fresh start appropriate? I think pausing and just asking about that with that sort of pause and understanding the nature of the question is a powerful thing. And I hope that makes sense. I think about different sort of frameworks I've used with this idea of a fresh start before with folks. I'll see folks who come in every new year, right? whether it's Chinese New Year or calendar New Year or whatever, and they want to start afresh. I want to start this habit. I want to do this. I want to do that. And is that the most helpful perspective? It can be great to make a fresh start, but is it a buildup on all the other things that we've done in our past? Is every moment a fresh start? They're just different perspectives you can take. So we'll see in a minute. I recall I put the picture of the pelicans in to remind me to just briefly tell the story of a time where I was on the California coast, and I was just watching sunset with friends. We'd been kind of doing this pretty intense conference that ended up being a lot of retreat type activities, which I'd never done before. I was sitting there watching the pelicans fly by, and I just had this really bizarre moment just for a few seconds where it felt like the pelicans were being created in every moment. It wasn't watching a continuity. It was like everything around me was just emerging for the first time in the now. And yeah, kind of an interesting thing to think about when you're talking about fresh starts. If you can kind of think that right now everything's recreating, interesting perspective. So I'd like you to do, you've hopefully got some writing implements, a chance to do a little reflecting. You can write with pen and paper. And of course, in this day and age, you may want to just kind of take a second later to dictate this into your phone notes or type it into a computer, whatever works for you, no problem. But I just want you to take a moment and really reflect on this idea of fresh starts. And for this first activity that we're going to do together, we're pondering the nature of fresh starts, not trying to get into specifics. Okay. When we do parts 2 and 3, we'll get into specifics of potential fresh starts you can make or other ways to look at things. But for right now, I just want to reflect on the nature of fresh starts to kind of get us going. So I put up a few things from the internet that talk about fresh starts. Every day is a fresh start, thinking of fresh starts ahead on this road with the road sign. And then a little more elaborate, the bottom right one, a fresh start isn't a new place, it's a new mindset. And then the longer quote by Jennifer Smith, there's no such thing as a completely fresh start. Everything new arrives on the heels of something old, and every beginning comes at the cost of an ending. So many different ways to look at this. And what I'd like you to do is contemplate that. So I've got 3 questions for you. I'll leave them up here and we're just going to take maybe 5 minutes or so to just kind of write about your answers to those or reflect on your answers to those. Okay. So first question is number one, is every moment a fresh start? Is that your perspective? What do you think? Number two, is every moment a continuation of the previous one? Is there kind of that longitudinal, kind of per that quote, that there's something that must end. And, there's always kind of this moment of ending and beginning, ending and beginning. And then number three, this is applying it to you. Why might you want or not want a fresh start in your life right now? How does that fit in? And it's okay. When we do whole health, especially in our consultative clinic, people will come in and we'll have them fill out this thing called the personal health inventory. It's this 2-page questionnaire. And it has people rate different aspects of their health on a scale from 1 to 5. But what it is where do you want to be and where are you? And what's interesting is the form puts in, you have permission not to want to be a 5 out of 5 with how you're eating or how active you are and so on. And I'm always struck by how many people, in fact, most people will put 4s on the where they want to be. They don't expect to be doing it all perfectly. And I think that is a really interesting reflection too. Are you satisfied with where you are? And if you're not, where does the dissatisfaction come from? Is it coming from externally? Is it some sort of societal thing? I mean, all you need to do to see how wild it is type in healthy person or healthy man or healthy woman or whatever online and see what comes up. Usually it's people with vegetables on the beach or their arms outstretched or they're meditating and they're all in perfect shape with perfect complexions. And it's just a little bit obnoxious. but just interesting to reflect on where do our expectations of where we need to be come from. And hopefully they're coming from a really satisfying and healthy place. And if that's the case, wonderful. Then perhaps a fresh start in that vein is a good way to go. So I'm just going to pause for a minute. I'm going to just set a timer for 5 minutes. If you want to, feel free to turn off your camera if you feel more comfortable writing that way. And just reflect on those questions. I'll leave them up on the screen. And then for those who are comfortable, we'll just have folks, kind of popcorn out or share in the chat what they came up with as they were doing this, any observations you had. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start 5 minutes and I'll just kind of keep track of the time. I'll give you a 30-second warning just so you don't have to feel rushed at the end, hopefully. Let's start now. Okay, and we're coming up on the 4.5 minute mark, so take about 30 more seconds to kind of wrap things up. Okay, great. And just go ahead and when you're ready, kind of bring your awareness and back up here, and we'll continue. Apologies for the typo. I have no idea what a pervious moment is, but I'm trying to think impervious, I guess. Versus something perverse. But let's go ahead and move forward. And I'd just like to open things up. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a minute with my screen so people can share themselves. Let's go ahead and turn that off for a minute. And I just love to have people kind of reflect on your thoughts.
I'll start here, Adam.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I put in the chat. So what came to me is let's question the question. What is a fresh start? And while I think we would collectively kind of probably have the same definition, I'd like to pose that because in starting to answer the questions, I asked, what exactly is a fresh start? So then I put in my 3 answers briefly.
Thank you. Yeah, I was looking over those. I
wrote-
think, oh, please.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I wrote down that it can be if you need it to be or want it to be, but every moment can be used potentially as an opportunity to have
Mhm.
a fresh start, but it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
That was kind of the way that I thought about it.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, and having that room for choice in there is so key.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. My thoughts were that yes, every moment is, in theory, a fresh start. And it is a continuation of the prior moment. Sometimes, particularly when you're asleep, it's a continuation of the prior moment when you're not conscious.
Mhm.
And that a fresh start helps you in the now. It helps you to be intentional about this present moment and what is presenting itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
I'm a little different on this because we're married.
Oh, hope we haven't sparked any domestic disputes.
When I think of every moment, it's never every moment. Things change. I was thinking of situations where it would exist. For example, reading a book and being deeply into that book. That would be moment to moment for as long as you're reading.
Yeah.
Conversations can be, I think, the highest, from my mind, the highest level of continuation. When you truly engage with somebody and work through it, and you're totally in the moment. I find by myself, it's a whole different kettle of fish. Because your mind can wander, you can start looking at your phone. There's too many things that keep you off of the every moment refreshing. We get distracted. We fall off the rail in trying to do that.
Yeah, nicely put. And the question of, and how do we maybe help ourselves stay on that rail, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just wanted to honor too, thanks, John, and then Joanna talking about crossing the bridge, carrying only those things that feel aligned and relevant, and leaving things behind if you don't need them. Yep. And then Carol, wild ride. Oh yeah. Sorry to hear you're going through all that. And glad that you had a good outcome. You mentioned vagal nerve injury and use of vocal cord compromise. Yeah. So,
I can still talk, however, it's coming
okay.
back.
Yeah, that's great. but I can understand how that could make you really be thinking about each
Oh,
moment and
yeah.
how
All of it.
but
Yeah, all of
yeah.
it. There's a real big permission in there to just start
Mhm.
fresh, everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's to me it's very exciting.
That's wonderful. And thanks for sharing that. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, Carol, when I read what you wrote, that happened with my husband too. That
Mm.
he had metastatic lung cancer, and the tumor actually hit an area that took out a vocal cord. So he had the vocal cord filling procedure, and you know what happened with us with that was in 2011. He was diagnosed, and it got to the point we didn't know what the future was. And we'd say, well, I don't know if we're still going to be here in a few months, but we're here now. And it really was a good, um, yeah, it's a terrible experience in some ways, but also was he wanted to see it as a spiritual experience, is what he said.
Sure.
And that living in the moment and serving life as best we can in this moment, is what it comes down to. And so I think every moment is a fresh start, and it's where we truly live. As
Mhm.
if I think of myself as a spiritual being first, that's where I truly live. But I also get caught up in the past and the future, because that's the world we live in. But
Mhm. Yeah.
um, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. And I think it is really important to reflect, when we have these moments of great transition in our lives, often, of course, related to healthcare experiences, being able to kind of frame that. And sometimes fresh starts or new beginnings or whatever you want to call it happen, whether we choose them or not, too. And what you make of that can be really powerful. And you'll see people going through some of the most difficult times of their lives and saying it's one of the most powerful times of their lives as well. And it also speaks to one of the folks I've worked with over the years talks about liminality, right? This idea that you're in a place of infinite choices and how powerful and also daunting that can be, right? And so fresh starts can sometimes feel like they tap into that sense of the unknown and how do you prepare for the unknown? And the word of the 21st century, I guess, is unprecedented, right? So trying to figure out how we work with that. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you guys sharing and thank you for letting this go deep. And I hope we can keep doing that through our time here. And if it's okay with everybody, I would love to move into part two or insight source number two here. So let's see how that goes. So I want to talk a little bit about whole health, give you a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll kind of move into an activity with that too. I'm going to give you a kind of a quick thumbnail, but I want to make sure we have time to do this activity as well because it can be really, I think, interesting for people as well in a different way. So I just wanted to highlight the Passport to Whole Health really quickly. It's a book I put together for the VA back a few years ago. It's been kind of revised multiple times, and the link is there. But if you just type in VA Passport to Whole Health, it'll show up. And this will go into tons of detail, all research based in terms of these different areas that we're going to talk about in terms of ways you could potentially make a fresh start or ways you could be happy with where you are. And just so you know, the whole health really kind of came into being when the Office of Patient-Centered Care and Cultural Transformation was created in the United States VA, the Veterans Administration. It's one of the largest in the US, largest self-contained healthcare systems that there is. So it's a great place to be able to do some experimenting and kind of implement some strategies. We had the pleasure for University of Wisconsin of creating clinical tools for them, and there's a whole library of those. If you want to look at it at some point too, you can just type in Whole Health Library. It's something like 200 now, somewhere in there, 150, 200 different documents that you can use and read up on that kind of go into different aspects of whole health for different conditions or different tools you can use and that kind of thing. The setup is really that you go through different reflections with people, and then in doing so, help set shared goals, really based on what matters most to them, which makes sense, right? Because if you build care around what someone values, they're much more likely to follow through, and we see that. I mean, people disengage if they're just feeling like they're being told what to do all the time, or if it doesn't really feel like it connects. The example we often give is somebody can tell you all day long that your A1C is higher than it should be and your blood sugar should improve. And that might not make as much of a powerful difference as saying, hey, if you want to be able to have enough sensation in your feet to be able to walk your daughter down the aisle, or you want to make sure you're avoiding problems with complications from diabetes because you really want to be able to travel and that would make it harder, reframing it that way can be really powerful for people. Ideally, framing it in terms of what they can do, not what they can't do, of course. Whole health opens up to a broader array of tools. One of the things that I think is so great is the VA is now covering a lot of complementary approaches, things like massage therapy and acupuncture, yoga classes, mindfulness classes, biofeedback, that kind of thing. And yeah, and then there are about, I think it's up to 9 million. I hope I'm not getting my numbers wrong, but about a third of all the veterans in the VA system have experienced whole health as of fiscal year 24, which is pretty great. That this kind of grassroots effort is spread through all that devotion to the concepts of the folks who are champions at their different sites around the country. So it's got a lot of currency, and I'm just going to introduce you a little bit to it. And the best way to introduce you to it is both to talk about it in the VA, but also to let you know it's spreading to other places. So just wanted to mention briefly that Southern California University, which focuses it's not a medical school per se in the sense that it trains MDs or a osteopathic school. It trains acupuncturists, Ayurvedic practitioners, and a number of other folks who work in the healthcare professions. And they've decided that they're going to be the whole health university, that their focus is going to be to bring all of this to bear in all of their education for all of their students and their faculty, which is pretty remarkable. The American Academy of Family Physicians just put together this whole health approach kind of framework that they're using in family medicine. I just heard I changed the slide even since I sent it in a week or so ago, because Honor Health, which is affiliated with Arizona State University, just created their own Whole Health Institute and announced that that was coming. And then on the bottom left there, it's a picture of the Alice Walton School of Medicine. That's the medical school I was helping with. We'll see how they do. I think they're still trying to find their way a little bit in terms of the whole health curriculum, but they've done a really nice job of trying to think outside the box in terms of potential ways to have medical students trained that may be a little more broad-based. So a lot going on. This picture on the right is kind of the hallmark of the whole health approach, and we're going to take a walk through this circle, as we say. It's called the Circle of Health, and I just want to introduce you to it really briefly before we start talking about how it applies to you personally in an activity. But bottom line is it starts with me at the center. Mindful awareness encompasses it all. Being aware of what you need, what's going on is absolutely required. Some of the folks who are out there will say pause, notice, and choose. That's what they would say at the Whole Health Institute in Arkansas frequently. And then you'll notice that most of the acreage on that circle is devoted to self-care approaches. And so there are those 8 aspects of self-care that you can think about. And all those matter. And what I love about this work is that it legitimizes conversations about all of those. And it allows people to feel like they can kind of think about goals, or we can even say fresh starts in terms of a variety of different areas, if that feels right. The next circle out, that darker blue circle, is really thinking about professional care, who helps you out along the way, recognizing that, if you think about the numbers, you probably spend less than 1% of your time, unless you're really having to deal with the healthcare system a lot, 1% of your time interacting with healthcare professionals. If that is kind of on par with having a 2-hour movie running and your doctor glimpses a second of it and is supposed to kind of know what to do in some ways, if you know what I mean. And so really recognizing you're with yourself all the time, and it needs to be that you are the captain of your ship, and your team, of which you're the captain, can help you navigate through things. And then encompassing this entire circle, community, culture, and an environment. And the idea that it's not just me, it's we, right? And we're products of our environment. People have talked about this circle as being very Western in kind of its framework, putting the individual at the center versus the group or the family or some of these other perspectives. And we've been working on that. I just helped with the group putting out a paper about how do we do this for example, kids, and thinking about them, in this framework, or families as a whole, or some of these other views. But what I'd like to do is take a second and take you through this. So I'm going to leave it up there. And once again, you can have your note-taking devices or whatever at the ready if anything comes up for you. But I'd just like to walk you through the circle and have you reflect on a few things and give you a sense of what that's like. So with your permission, we'll just take 5 minutes and do that. So we'll start at the center, and that's the me. All right, so the me at the center is the mindful, or sorry, the me at the center is what really matters to you. So just take a moment and ask that question. What really matters? Okay, what really matters? When you think about your life in general, what do you value? And we'll push it even a little harder. What really, really matters? I've had people say before, what matters to me is to be out of pain. And I'll nudge them a little more and say, but what would you do if you weren't in pain? Because that's really what you're focused on, right? It's not just about getting rid of symptoms or problems. It's about what you can do if you're not dealing with those in a way that limits you. So what really matters? And we know that people who know and have a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives have much longer life expectancies than people who don't. So that's really important. Having purpose makes a difference. So as you ponder that, then, this is a moment of mindful awareness, but then recognizing how the things we were talking about, earlier, how that plays in, how noticing matters, how being able to kind of work with what comes up for you, being in a place where you feel like you're equipped to work with whatever comes up, including all of the unknowns that life brings us, is powerful too. And then let's just move, very, very, simply around the self-care aspects of things. So we'll start at 12 o'clock there with physical activity. This idea, and this is just for the record, this is the UW version of the circle. We modified it a bit to include a few other words, but the VA circle is very similar. Movement and flexibility. I think some people assume that that needs to be a certain kind of thing, but there are many options ranging from, gentle Tai Chi exercises to, of course, yoga, which can be a mind-body practice as well, to really just trying to figure out how best to keep yourself active. And I usually don't have to argue too hard in favor of that. The research is so clear that physical activity helps almost everything, and to do with our health, from our mood to, our long-term function and our overall quality of life. So that can be a place to make a fresh start. The next one over, moving clockwise, is surroundings, which can be an interesting one as well. Sometimes fresh start can manifest as changing your living circumstances. Is your home aesthetically pleasing? Does it have a good feel to you when you walk in the door? Do you have green spaces that you can enjoy? Do you feel like you're safe where you are? And do you feel like you have good emotional surroundings? Workplace environment can be a big piece of this. And I can't tell you how many people will bring up that they feel like certain aspects of their workplace environment are pretty difficult, that there might be, a less comfortable place to work, ergonomic issues, sound problems, noise, but just reflecting on that, do I have surroundings that feel good to me? That can also mean things you're exposed to, toxins. I always tell people, do you feel like the air quality where you are is good? Do you feel like you're exposed to anything? Continuing moving on around is personal development. That's at the 3 o'clock position. It's kind of all the things that we do with goals to continue to grow. It can include our education, and it can include our financial status. It can include, our goals long term, how much we're able to bring humor and laughter into our lives, how much we work with optimism, how resilient we are, and what we do to build our resilience or our ability to handle challenges. That's another place where there might be possibility for a fresh start. Then we move to nutrition. That's probably the most popular one that I'll see people discuss, honestly. And people will definitely have a lot of things to discuss there, and just setting even simple goals around that. Like, I'm going to drink more water, or I'm going to try to decrease the number of meals that are animal based, or whatever, can be incredibly powerful. And so a fresh start can fall in there too. And it can be as elaborate or as simple as you're comfortable with. Recharge, sleep is a big one. makes a lot of difference. Trying to shoot for that window of at least 6 to 8 hours. It makes a huge difference in terms of mortality and mental health and so on. And remembering that it's not just about sleep, it's also about taking breaks, and this idea that taking breaks is good for our health in general. It's how we rest and how we use our leisure time, even how we take vacation, right? A lot of people find that their vacation only lasts as long as the vacation lasts, and then they're immediately, the effects wear off when they're back into the fray. So, how do we use our yin time, our time to be still? Then we move up into family, friends, coworkers, the relationship circle. This idea that in the shelter of each other we live, right? That we don't do this on our own typically. And, as I'm sure many of you have seen at this point, the research on loneliness and health is pretty intense as well. There's some studies that, being profoundly lonely is the equivalent of smoking half a pack a day or something like that. And so how do you build that in? We know that people who feel that they're loved and appreciated do better. There are all sorts of different studies that indicate that if people feel supported going into a surgery, they have better outcomes. There's one study where they took men who were going in for heart issues, and if they lived longer, if they just answered the question that they felt like their partner showed love to them. So how do you build connections? And it's not necessarily about number of connections. It can be about the depth of connections. It's confidants, and how many confidants do you have? That probably makes a big difference. Taking it up to 9 o'clock, we have spirit and soul. Now that can tie into meaning and purpose, which we're already talking about it with the me part of the circle, but leaving room for whatever spiritual practices a person has. And that may tie into organized religion. It may tie into other things that you do, but just leaving room for that and making sure that there's space for people to talk about that or explore it, or, even kind of have a sense of where that fits into their lives or doesn't. It's never going in, from the clinician's perspective with an agenda. You're just trying to really help people out. And then last but not least is mind and emotions, relaxing and healing. What kind of mind-body practices like those I showed you on the list are you doing? So quite a bit of options there for fresh starts. And then, just moving out very briefly into those other two circles, how do you work with your healthcare team? That in and of itself can be huge. Sometimes just starting with a new primary care physician or getting a second opinion or working with different insurance or something like that can completely change things over for people. And do the complementary and conventional approaches work well together for you? Is there someone you trust who can give you your chiropractic care or your osteopathy or your acupuncture or so on? And then last but not least, how that all fits in. How are you doing with the world around you? Of course, seeing a lot of folks who are very distressed about, the state of the world out there, and how do you work with that? Are you being healthy with your use of media? Do you feel like you're comfortable with, how things are with environmental practices in your life? Do you feel like you're honoring your culture? Do you understand other cultures? Those kinds of things. So a whole lot of it to think about. And I just want to show you one other image while you're kind of continuing to write if anything's coming up for you, but thinking about all the things around us. I talked about the me-we interaction, and this really came up in the VA. They don't use this graphic anymore. There are certain phrases that aren't currently allowed in the VA, including social determinants of health and diversity and equity and inclusion. But just being able to kind of think about how do different factors influence your health, ranging from institutions and laws to your education and so on as well. And what do you experience in terms of, racism, classism, sexism, all those different isms, right, can play a role too. And how does that influence you, and what might be helpful to work with if you're thinking about a fresh start there? So lots to unpack there. And I just want to take a second for folks to just share if they had any new ideas, they have something underway, or if they have any thoughts about this approach, these approaches. And once again, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and see if anybody has anything that came up as we were doing that sort of whirlwind tour around the circle.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, lots of possibilities. And part of the key, would always say this is, pick one thing. You don't have to
Oh.
do it all at once, right? Like where do you feel like you're just drawing the most? And it's amazing how it'll vary. I'll see somebody and I'll think, oh man, he's going to want to talk about activity. And nope, he wants to talk about personal development and education. It's like, okay, great. Yeah. Let's set a goal for taking that class. And it's all about this navigation or this negotiation to try to help people kind of figure out how they're going to kind of do the dance, right? In terms
Mhm.
of what will be most helpful for them. And of course, as a doc, I have an agenda for them too. And how do I share what I encourage them to think about without feeling like they're not the captain of the ship, because they really should feel like it's their plan, not my plan as the clinician. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So any other insights or thoughts? Yeah, Nancy.
I just wanted to say that I love that model and having that diagram because I think, certainly the whole self-care wheel, I've got that, but
Mhm.
those determinants beneath it
Mhm.
and how that impacts all of it. That's super
Yeah.
helpful to have that and understand, okay, that's where you're going to make your fresh starts,
Mhm. Yeah.
and how that really affects us in our world now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's super helpful. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so often I just say this is a springboard for conversation.
Yeah.
There's no judgment about what a person does, but it gets you thinking about how complex and wonderful and elaborate we are as human beings,
Yeah.
and how other people in our lives are too. And just, taking one thing and not being overwhelmed can be so helpful. So yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I too really like this diagram and going from me to the whole health. And as
Mhm.
you went through that, I really thought this is what Living Whole Online
Yeah.
is about facilitating,
Mhm.
because it can be kind of, as you've referenced, overwhelming. But to
Mm,
have that facilitation, like
right.
what Catherine and David are doing, I
Mhm.
made that connection.
Yeah.
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 And I see why you and Catherine hit it off.
Yeah. Let's just say we're all pretty simpatico around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, yeah. Any other thoughts anybody has before I just wanted to get everybody thinking about that. Again, no need to feel pressured into setting a goal, but just this reminder that there is a lot of spaciousness for doing that if you decide you do. And that a fresh start can mean, what whole life altering moment, but it can also just mean, hey, I'm just gonna think a little bit about this one part of my life and do it a little bit differently for right now and see what happens. And that's a
Yeah.
lot easier than a complete overhaul. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to rank them
Uh-huh.
in my typical
You're not supposed to
fashion,
be judging.
and I couldn't do it because everything related to everything else.
Mm.
So,
Very integrated.
I mean, I start with connections because to me that's crucial, but
Mhm.
so is everything else in your list. So,
Yeah.
so take it that way.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the beauty of it is that it does, if you think of it, and there's no like reason they're lined up the way they are. Think of it as rolling or whatever, as it's moving. But yeah, it's that understanding that all those things have merit and all of those things can be welcomed in the conversation for sure. Yeah.
I think something else about your model, the determinants at the bottom,
Mhm.
what it helped me see was, in addition to each of us being very complex beings, our world is very complex.
Mhm.
And, it kind of helped me open the aperture instead of saying, oh my God, it is terrible, all these things are happening. It's like, okay, so now you can be aware and you can
Mhm.
make sure that you're not feeding that monster
Mhm.
in whatever way that means. You
Mhm.
be the change that you want to see in the world,
Mhm.
and go forward with that.
Exactly.
So that was super, super helpful to kind of like get out of the muck,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and that's the power of mindfulness, right? Being
Yeah.
aware of it so that you can
Mhm.
do something about it. But being aware doesn't mean being mired down by, right? But you have
Yeah.
to know it's there.
Yes.
When I
Yes.
work with folks
Yes.
with chronic pain, you need to move through, not around the pain,
Yep.
and how can you do that in a way where
Yep.
you truly can get through and not get stuck in it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, beautiful.
Consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, was everybody ready for round three? Got one more round here. Guys
Bring
holding
it.
up okay?
Bring it
Bring it,
on.
Adam.
All right. All right. So this one, again, I'll do a quick little introduction and then we're going to just dive right in because so much of this is the experience. So, as some of you know, I have worked a lot with various shamanic practices over the years, and I really want to emphasize, number one, everything that we do, everything that I do in my practice, I have permission for. I think the idea of cultural appropriation is really important, and the folks who have suggested these techniques or laid them out give it freely because they're thinking about things from like the perspective of humanity or the world. But shamanism comes from a variety of traditions, and in a nutshell, it has, their traditions from all over the world. You'll see interesting points of commonality, and then also this rich uniqueness that's built around, culture and history and geological location or geographical location or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it's variable, but then there's some richness that's in common. One thing is that this idea of life force or energy or spirit is incredibly important. There's a lot of talk with interconnections with the natural world. This idea of working with spirit or consciousness. So this idea that people may encounter other types of awareness. One way I describe it is if consciousness is raw material of the universe, just like other things are, like energy or matter or whatever, this idea of the observer effect and quantum mechanics or whatnot, how might we be able to interact with other types of consciousness, whatever that may be, and so maybe we're thinking about the consciousness of a space, or the consciousness of a room. Like you'll hear people talk about, I walked into the party and I know what that party feels like, if it's going to be something I'll be comfortable in or not. The consciousness of the tree outside your window, the consciousness of an animal or other plant, that kind of thing. And so it's just a chance to, like we were talking about, kind of move our consciousness in different directions to see what comes up, being able to do that. And that's kind of the hallmark of a shamanic journey. This idea that one of the definitions of shaman is someone who has already walked the path, someone who has seen through the dark. And so one way I'll describe it is you arrive in a new city when you're backpacking through Europe or whatever, and you meet up with people at the hostel who have already been around the town for a few days and can tell you the best places to go or where not to go or that kind of thing. So it's kind of relying on someone else's experience to help guide you through and to kind of help you work with insights that come up as you do. So it can be a really powerful thing. Of course, with a formal journey, there are different elements that people will use. Some traditions will use substances that change our level of consciousness. Some will use trance-like states coming from music or dance. We're going to kind of be more kind of attuned today with what we do to kind of working more with imagery in some ways. But yeah, the beauty of it is that we can guide our consciousness all sorts of directions. And I'm just hoping to take a little time here to do just that. So we're going to do a guided exercise for a little while here, probably take about 15 minutes or so. And then we're just going to do that to explore the next step on your path. And then maybe it's a fresh start, a continuation, or maybe the universe is saying now for something completely different, right? So we'll see. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you can just relax. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I always tell folks, people speak in different languages when they do this. You may have imagery, but not everybody is visual. Some people feel it tactily, some people hear it, some people feel more of an emotional experience. It's okay, whatever you experience. It's also okay if you don't necessarily have a definitive experience in this brief moment that we're doing this. The key is just to give you another way to explore or think about exploring, and we'll see how it goes. So as we're doing it, we'll have you jot down notes, and then as time allows, we'll do a little bit of a discussion as well. Okay? All right. So once again, make yourselves comfortable. Again, feel free to, if you need to, just turn off devices, turn off your screen if you'd prefer. And yeah, I'll just take you through some imagery, make sure you're comfortable. If it were a little more elaborate, I'd even tell people just throw out a yoga mat and lay on the floor. But for this one, it might be easier to just stay in a chair. It's up to you. And I just encourage you, if you feel uncomfortable at all, like I say, just open your eyes, just kind of let yourself come back into the room. But most of the time, it's just fun to explore and see if there are other ways of knowing that can inspire our awareness of what we need, right? Sometimes dreams or imagery or symbolism or some of these other pieces can bring information that we can't just logically reason out necessarily, right? There are many ways to kind of, many lenses we can use to see, let's put it that way. So here we go. So we're going to do, when they talk about journeys, they'll talk about different directions you can go. If if anybody's interested, what we're going to do is more of a journey, an upper journey. That means kind of ascending. There you can do journeys. They talk sometimes the lower realm, which you go down, or stay in the middle realm, which is where we are, or ascend to the upper realm. And we have this all the time. I mean, Alice in Wonderland is a descent. Jack and the Beanstalk is an ascent, right? There are a lot of places in myth and legend where these kinds of things hold true. So it's fascinating, I think. But here we go. And so kind of just again, recognizing a lot of this is going to be kind of an imagery based thing, or as what comes up for you based thing. And if we ever want to do some more elaborate sorts of things, we certainly can. But so I'd like you to go ahead and, if you're comfortable, close your eyes or just kind of let your eyes relax. It can sometimes help to uncross your arms and legs and just kind of sit again in that dignified stance that you might use for a mindfulness exercise. This is different because this is much more interactive with what comes up for you versus just noticing, right? And I just want you to picture your favorite tree. We're going to just start with that. Just picture your favorite tree in the whole wide world. It can be a real tree, it can be a tree you've read about, it can be any kind of tree. It can be a tree that's there right now outside your window. It can be a tree that you remember from childhood. Anything's fair game. But just picture your favorite tree. And when you're ready, just stand at the base of that tree and kind of look at it and take it in a little bit. Maybe you feel it. Maybe you tune into the sense you have of the tree. Is it an old tree? Is it a young tree? Is it wise? Does it feel like it has some kind of a personality or not? Of course, trees are not just isolated. They have all sorts of life on them, around them, living in them. Tuning into that, recognizing that the tree has roots. It would be entirely possible to kind of visualize ourselves going down through those roots as well, but we're going to go up. So what I'd like you to do is just very gently let yourself, however works for you. I've seen people take elevators. I've seen people ride giant squirrels. I've had people just climb in the branches too, which is a little more straightforward, but just allowing yourself to go up that tree. Okay, and just moving yourself up. And the cool thing about this tree is it goes high enough up that you can kind of climb beyond. So just allow yourself to keep climbing it. And what you realize is it takes you up to someplace else, kind of like climbing the beanstalk or whatever to a different place. So as you go up, you may feel a little bit of a feeling like you're kind of passing through call it a border between where you came from and where you're going into the upper. But just allow yourself to move there. And then at the top of the tree is the beginning of a path. So I just want you to look around and take it in. People will describe this when they do these kinds of visualizations or journeys in a lot of different ways. Oh, I see a very ethereal world. I see a lot of castles in the clouds, or cloud covered mountains, or rainbows, or space, as in outer space kinds of scenes, or everything's fine. Just let yourself have that awareness come to you of what this place is like. And then when you're ready, we're just going to start walking down that path and recognizing that everyone will have a different experience here. So I'm just trying to give you some sort of guidelines or some anchors to kind of help you along the way. Again, if at any point you're just not feeling it, you can just open your eyes and go back where we started. But for now, if you're comfortable, let's walk down the path. And as we're walking down the path, I want you to look for a place called the Garden of Change. So I look for a garden. Might have a little sign that says the Garden of Change to the left or something like that. And just go ahead and take that path if you're comfortable with it. You can always come back and explore other places too with this. It's part of the fun of it, right? The sky's the limit because our consciousness or our awareness is unlimited. So just bringing yourself into this garden of change. And it can take a lot of forms for people. It could be a very cultured garden, a vegetable garden, a flower garden, a rock garden, or it might be a little more of like a kind of wild, sort of vaguely tamed garden too, almost like a meadow or a prairie or something. Everything's fine. Just see what you see. what calls out to you, and then just follow that path into the garden. And then what I'd like you to do is just go until you find a place to sit down. Could be a bench, could be a stone wall, could be all kinds of things, but just find a place to sit down. And in the spirit of kind of a lot of the different imagery exercises that are out there, I'd just like you to invite a friend, an advisor, a wisdom figure, they'll sometimes say, someone to come to you and just welcome them to come and sit by you or be by you on that bench and just see who comes. It's okay if nobody comes. It's okay if more than one comes. Just see what comes up. Don't question it. Don't try to fight it. It's okay if you feel your imagination at work a little bit with this. Ideally, we're trying to let this be an experience versus something we create, but just let it unfold. Let it unfold as it does. Excellent. So just interact with this wisdom figure. Sometimes it can be helpful to offer them a gift that seems appropriate. That gift can even just be a handshake or a hug, or you might even pull out, because we can do this here, a present like a birthday present or something like that and give it to them too. And then just ask, or receive if they have anything for you as well. It may be wisdom. It may be something that feels more just like kindness. You can feel their affection for you or their, love for you. Just be aware of that. And however it plays out, just allowing yourself to thank them for that. And now you have an option. If you feel like this interaction is something that's really proving useful for you, stay here. That's totally fine. If you would like to continue for this next little part, that's totally fine too. Totally up to you. But in front of where you're sitting, 3 doorways are appearing. Okay. So just let those 3 doors appear. They can look like fancy gates. They can look like a simple door, into a room, whatever you'd like. And we're going to explore as much as you want what's behind those 3 doorways. Okay. So we're just going to take a minute for each one. You can stay there if you want, or you can come back out and go to the next one and just see what comes up for you. So door number 1, you see a label over it now. It might be written in the top, a sign, kind of formed in wrought iron, whatever. And the first one is, remember, we're in the garden of change. The first one is behaviors. Okay, so thinking about your behaviors and just going on through for a moment and just seeing what awaits you in terms of insight or wisdom around your behaviors. And maybe, or maybe not, there's some insight for a fresh start in there. So into the door marked behaviors. And we'll just take a minute there. Just look around, listen, feel. Again, it may not come visually. That's okay. Just see what you're noticing. Thoughts, insights. Good. You might have another discussion with someone. You might just see something symbolic. You might get information. You might have an awareness. Sometimes people will encounter versions of themselves, when they had a different experience. That's absolutely fine. Just interact with them and see what they have to say. Maybe you comfort them. All right. And you can stay here in the behaviors doorway or room or whatever. And if you'd like, you can walk back out to door number 2. And door number 2 across the top says relationships. So maybe this is another way to frame a fresh start, is in terms of relationships. So if you're comfortable, and again, all of this is based on your comfort, you may be sitting at the bench still, you may be in room 1, you may be in room 2, which says relationships. And I say room, but there may be a lot of things going on inside this doorway. So cross that threshold and think about relationships for a moment and see what comes up for you. Once again, I'm going to just pause for another minute. and ask questions. Be curious. Look around. Listen closely. Some people will tell me that they invite their wisdom person or figure in so that they can get more insight from them about what's going on. But relationships. Okay, good. So again, you can choose to stay here, or there's one last one that we're going to do. And so door number 3. And door number 3 is going to be dreams of the future. Okay, so dreams of the future for this one. And again, if you so choose, walking through that door and just taking a minute there. Dreams of the future. And when I have taken people through this before, they'll sometimes say the future can be a little trickier to kind of understand or see. That's okay. And I would just be really careful not to bring in assumptions about the future as you're doing that, but just notice, just see what's coming up. Recognize you can step out if you feel the need to, but just looking around. What is your dream for the future? What is your dream? Where do you want things to go, right? I say begin with the end in mind. What outcome would you like to see? Good. Yeah. So we're just going to take a moment there. Good. Just noticing, just experiencing. If any insights come to you, wonderful. If you're having a discussion with someone, wonderful. And in about 30 more seconds, we're going to take our leave. So I just want to make sure you have a chance to kind of talk with or thank whatever imagery is coming up for you, whatever is coming up. Good. Yep. Excellent. And remembering that we can always come back here. You can always return here. You know, it's a lot away, a tree climb away. You know, saying thank you to whomever you've encountered in the garden of change, bidding them farewell. And we're just going to bring our awareness back down the path the way we came, back down that path away from the garden, back up the trail to where you kind of came off the treetop of your favorite tree. And then just allowing yourself to go in the reverse, just climbing back down the tree, descending. Some people waft down. Had one person write a falling leaf down once. They described it. Just bring yourself down to the bottom. If you want, just sending gratitude to the tree. And also just taking a moment to send gratitude to yourself. Thanks for showing up with this. I know this is really unfamiliar. Sometimes, believe me, can feel a little strange or unusual. But thanks for giving yourself a chance to just explore today and give yourself just kind of the equivalent of a acknowledgement for that. Let yourself just take in the fact that, hey, I tried all these activities and everything today. And then when you're ready, just go ahead and bring your awareness back into your day-to-day physical self. Might wiggle your toes, open your eyes, whatever's easiest. Just and if folks who have their cameras off are comfortable with it, just when you're ready, turn the cameras back on, just so I can make sure you're not asleep or in a deep trance or something. You know, usually what happens, people just have a nice sleep and good dreams. But yeah, excellent. All right. So thanks for doing that. And I guess one more time, I'm going to just stop sharing here and just invite people. We have about 4 more minutes or so just to share anything that came up for them that they'd like to share. I know that's a little bit of a different approach, and normally, we might even take a few hours of doing this, with different journeys or something to give people a feel. But I just really wanted to be able to share a little bit of that sense with you, if for no other reason than to give you a sense of, hey, this might be a useful thing for me to explore down the road. So. Yeah, anybody like to comment or share on what that was like? I know it's hard right after you've done that too to kind of get your land legs back under you. So,
Well, I would talk about my tree.
yeah.
It's a sequoia in California,
Yeah.
where we visited when my cousin who was dying of lung cancer.
Mhm.
And when I got to the top, she was there with a number of other people who were very important in my life. And we sat around in a circle, and it was just it was a very peaceful place.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really glad that was, there waiting for you when you did that.
So my tree was this favorite beech tree in Sherburne, Mass, which was so rooted and elegant and beautiful. And when I got to the top, I was in the Southwest where we had a shamanic experience, and which was just amazing. And then I sat on the wall of this little village, Hopi village, and we almost missed the turn to go up there. And I really started to go down the path of the future of dreams. And what came up was the importance for me of manifesting beauty, creativity, adventure, vitality, and harmony.
Nice.
And trusting that all the wisdom guides would present themselves along the way.
Nice. Beautiful.
Mhm.
It's interesting when people talk about that future door. Sometimes it'll start and they'll kind of have these, it'll seem very dark, and then things will slowly kind of become more illuminated as they go. It's different for everybody, but yeah, that relationship we have with our futures can be a really interesting dance. So
Yeah,
that's
interesting. Yeah. So,
Very nice.
thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Oh yeah,
It's
appreciate
really
you
beautiful.
jumping in. Really
Yeah.
do. Yeah. Any last comments or anything? Again, I want to respect our time, but I'm always happy to, chat if anybody wants to down the road too. Yeah.
Sure.
I forgot what the first door was.
First order was behaviors.
Oh, okay, maybe that's why. In and out of that one. No,
Had people
I'm
open the
joking.
door and say, nope, not right now.
Yeah.
Close it right back up.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, I wanted to say that I appreciated the outline that you gave me. As
Uh-huh.
I mentioned, I'm in a process of
Yeah.
redesigning, and the engineer side of me, I'm not an engineer, but I'm going to assign it to that. I appreciate the outline, the producer side of me. It's food for thought that
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
kind of help me in my definitions as I go forward. So thank you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
thank you for taking that in that spirit. It really is about just giving you new ways to look, new
Yeah.
lenses, right? And
Yeah.
what you do with those, it's very personal for everybody, how they do
Sure.
that. And everybody's different. So that's wonderful. Thank you for
Right. Well, are there any additional thoughts people want to jump in with, or if everyone is feeling satisfied and at peace after that beautiful talk, then we can move to our few minutes of wrapping up. But I'll bring Catherine up here as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for that. That was really fantastic, and I'm sure I know I appreciated it. I'm sure everyone really appreciated it.
Can I say one
pleasure.
more thing?
Yes.
I think it's And I'm a retired radiologist, so my medical training's been a long time ago, but the idea that you're going into VAs
Mhm.
with some of these principles, I
Mhm.
think is really valuable, and just medical school in general, because I think, at least when I went through it, there wasn't so much.
Mhm.
So thank you
Yeah.
for doing
Oh,
these things, all of you
pleasure.
who are doing it. Yeah.
All right.
That's one of the many beautiful things about Adam and his work is that he's still in that academic health center world, bringing these kinds of ideas to the people he's touching in Wisconsin, the people he's touching in the VA, the people he was touching when he was helping create the new medical school in Arkansas. And Beth is an OT, and she and I have had a number of really wonderful exchanges about how important it is that all people who are in the medical profession and all of the healthcare professions need to be thinking in these more broad, holistic ways. And Adam, you give us a beautiful combination of a structure, sort of that academic structure that we're all used to thinking in, and then expanding it into experiences. And
Mhm.
it's just every time I'm with you, I just feel so grateful
Oh,
and so blessed that you bring this kind of wisdom and power to a world that really needs it, especially right now.
my pleasure. And thank you. It's how can we keep exploring, right? How can we take it farther and how can we leave room for, they talk about transformative education, right? That opportunity to have a transformative experience that takes you off on a fresh start, I guess we could say. So, yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah,
So
I didn't want to leave Adam without communicating that I am in the VA. I'm 100% VA health and have been for over 15 years. So
Okay.
I have a fair amount of experience in first person and worked with homeless veterans throughout New England, the women's
Wow.
employment
Yeah.
coordinator in a position I had for a while. Um, so I have experienced a fair amount of the philosophy and treatment, and I see it in the weekly newsletters that the VA
That's
sends
great.
recipients who sign up for the newsletter always includes, links to where you can get more whole health
Mhm.
advice and guidance.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
good,
that's great.
kudos. Yeah, little positive feedback there if you like.
yeah,
Okay.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. And again, thank you to Adam and thank you all for being here with us today.
Mhm.
I know we're at time, so just to be mindful for everyone, I want to say it's been wonderful being here with you. We hope you have a great month and we look forward to being with you again at our next Sunday TLC, which will be on April 26th. That's at the same time wherever you are in the world, same time in your time zone. And if you're not on our mailing list but would like to be, feel free to drop your email in the chat and I will add you. We only send one email a week and you can unsubscribe at any time. So it's very low pressure. Um, and feel free to sign off if you're ready. Otherwise, if you want a little time to digest and just have a moment, I will move you to the waiting room. So again, thank you all very much and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Excellent. All right. Let's see. Okay, let me get everyone sorted out. Thank you, thank you. Great being with you. Okay. Mhm. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that is it. Let me just do some recording moments over here. I will stop here. Stop recording. And then let me stop the YouTube.